Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We are normal again. Woo! I was fooling around with those masks that they have on Facebook, and I couldn't turn it off. It was bizarre. Hey, good morning. What's happening, man? Let's see here. Hi, Maggie. How are you? So we're going to talk today about, it's Michael, by the way. We're going to talk today about Mister Rogers, the new movie that's out, and communication skills in general. It occurred to me about midweek that we live in a very interesting time. We live in a time of tumult, you know? Hey, Neil. And problems, man. There's so many problems in the world today, and we're so sensitive, and everybody's got a microphone now, and everybody's a celebrity. Good morning, Tim. How are you? How's Minnesota? And hey, Thomas. And this idea of everybody being filled with angst and anger is getting on a lot of people's nerves. Hey, Thomas. Good morning. And I thought I was watching. Sometimes what I do in my brain, I make connections, right? So when I read the newspaper, I don't read it often anymore, but when I read anything, like a magazine that's got a bunch of different articles on it, I read what's going on up here, and then I read what's going on up here, and I think, these are happening at the same time. They're in the same publication. How are they related? So I'm monitoring all the angst and all the drama, and then I'm watching a preview, a trailer of the new movie called, it's the new Mister Rogers movie, right? Would you like to be my neighbor? And I haven't seen the movie yet. But I watched the trailer and I got into Rogers a bit, and I actually created a blog post about him that I'm rushing into publication because I wanted to share the link with you in the notes down below, as I always do when we talk about stuff. I share links and more information in the show notes. And this Mister Rogers guy was amazing. I kind of grew up with him. I wasn't a big fan of the show, but we saw it on occasion. I think in the 70s, we made fun of Mister Rogers more than we did anything, you know. So he was such an interesting character. Good morning, Anna. How are you? And so this idea of, and Sharon, how are you? Mr. Rogers and how he communicated, it was in my mind as I'm reading about all the angst and all the things that are going on, because I think we could use more Mr. Rogers in the world today. That's my thinking. And I don't know about you, but as a speaker, as a presenter, as somebody who writes, I have the ability to channel, hey Rosie, I have the ability to channel Mr. Rogers and play down the angst and play up, you know, this idea of being human, of actually being good and nice to people and good to people. And I want to be a role model for that when I can. And maybe you do too. You know, I just started a new Facebook group. It's free. It's a private group though. And it's for people who want to be better communicators, specifically presenters and speakers. And over 140 people joined in a 24-hour period. I was amazed. And hi, Rosie. And pleased that this would happen. And one of the things that I'm going to teach these people and help them cultivate their own skill set is how to be more natural in front of a group, and how to be decent to people, you know, and how not to use tricks, communication tricks. Just use empathy and eye contact and these types of things to get your message across. And avoid the anger and the angst and the histrionics, you know, and all the things people are known for today, because you don't need them, you know. Let me tell you what I mean. So I'll share a few Fred Rogers. Oh, and the Facebook link, by the way, and I'll put it in the notes down below. But if you go to Facebook and you type in, it's facebook.com/groups/present like a pro, and then the word group again, right? So facebook.com/groups/present like a pro. Hey, Russell, good morning. And then / the word group, or present like a pro group, right? So you can find it easy. And I'll put the link down below. But Fred Rogers was an interesting cat, man. So what a lot of people don't know that is he joined television. He started his show because he didn't like what was going on. Hey, Diane, welcome back. he didn't like what was going on television. He thought, his famous line is, he says, I turned on the television, I saw people throwing pies at each other. Well, he's talking about Soupy Sales, who got his start in Detroit. And he thought, well, the television could be better than that. So he came up with a show that was like the antithesis of violence and harming people and laughing at people, right? So he got into television because he hated it, but that's an interesting thing for somebody who, and listen to this famous line that he said. He says, "What is essential is invisible to the eye," Rogers said. Hey Karen, what is essential is invisible to the eye. It's an interesting thing for somebody to say, somebody who's in television. So Fred had Yo-Yo Ma on the show, not to play the cello, right, but to love the cello. He wanted to show people what it was like to really love something. And Francois Clemens, I don't know if you remember Officer Clemens from the show, was the first black and gay person to have a recurring show, a recurring role on a kids' TV show. Now, hey Connor, now what's interesting about Francois is that he wasn't openly gay at the time, but it was it was a new thing for gay people to be on television at all, and Rogers was giving him a voice. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood aired 895 episodes between 1968 and 2001. Another interesting fact I didn't know, Fred Rogers was a lifetime vegetarian, oddly, maybe. He died of stomach cancer at the age of 74. He died in 2003, everybody. So Fred Rogers was famous for using the phrase expressions of care. That's how he thought about communication, right? Expressions of care. And he said, feelings are both mentionable and manageable. It strikes me that we say today that we're not judging, and yet there's more judgment in the world than ever before. Are you kidding me? Judgment and hate. It's fascinating how we say we don't do it, but it's becoming more and more commonplace. Fred Rogers respected everyone. He listened to people, made it clear that he heard them. And when he was awarded a Daytime Emmy, when he got on stage to make his speech, one of the things he did was he asked for 10 seconds of silence. What person that wins an award these days gives up that kind of microphone time, you know? But he asked for 10 seconds of silence so people in the audience and the viewers could think about what their achievements were for 10 seconds. In other words, to take the spotlight off of him and put it on the people that were listening and watching. Very unusual man, this guy. So he had 4 leadership qualities that I think we could all use today. And the first one is respect, right? He respected people. The second one is empathy. There's a famous story about how Rogers went to visit a boy with cerebral palsy one time. He actually was visiting on a business trip. He happened to be invited to meet the kid, and so he did. And the kid had issues, you know, and started to act out. And when Mr. Rogers got there, he actually had to be taken from the room, the child. And Rogers didn't leave. He just hung out and waited. And he waited for the child to come back, and finally the kid settled down, and Mr. Rogers said to the boy, everybody was wondering, what's he waiting for? You know, he could take off, get on with his schedule, right? But he waited for the boy to be brought back into the room, and then he said to the boy, after the boy had calmed down, he said, I'd like you to do something for me. Would you do something for me? And of course, this was Mr. Rogers, right, from television. The boy, even through his emotional trauma and whatever else was on his mind that day, he said, yeah, of course, I'll do whatever you want, you know, you're my hero, or whatever he said. And Mr. Rogers said, he said, I'd like you to pray for me. Now, this message isn't about religion, I don't think, but it's about that turnaround, you know, this empathy. No one had ever asked this developmentally disabled, cerebral palsied young man to do anything. He wasn't capable of doing anything for anybody else. Everyone served the kid. And because Mr. Rogers shows up at his house and says, would you do something for me? He offered the child a chance to do something for another human being, no less his hero, right? And I get choked up just even thinking about this because the boy was so taken by this request, no one had ever asked him to do anything, that he said, of course I'll pray for you. Again, I don't think it's about praying or religion. Thank you, Rosie. And I don't know if you're talking to me, you are special too. Everybody's special. That's why that's why his empathic message resonated with everybody. It's true, everybody's special. I made a video out here on the patio the other day about how everyone's pre-approved. Again, you can take the religious connotation if you want it, but you don't need it for the message to resonate. We're all perfect just the way we are. And Rogers recognized this. He certainly recognized it in children. And that's what made his message resonate for so many years, almost 900 episodes of his television show. So the first leadership trait is respect. The second one is passion. The third one, empathy. And the third one is passion. Rogers was a masterful storyteller. And I encourage people to use stories when they present, when they speak. I always say people don't need more bullet points. They want more success stories. So there's a famous story about how the funding for public television was about to be cut. It was during the Nixon years. Government needed money to fight the war in Vietnam. And so the country found itself in a position where they were deciding whether to fund public television, particularly Mister Rogers' show, or the Vietnam War. You can't make this stuff up, right? They were deciding how to spend the money. A war they couldn't win, or Mister Rogers' television show. So Mister Rogers went as an emissary for PBS to testify in front of Congress. And at the time, hey Jim, good morning. Talking about Mister Rogers, everybody. And so Rogers testified before this hard-boiled senator by the name of John Pastore. I think that's how you say his name. He was from Rhode Island. And you can watch the video. I'll post the video in the notes down below. But Pastore's like this hard-boiled senator, and Mister Rogers shows up. And this guy was not an act, Mister Rogers. He really did talk in a soft-spoken tone, and he really did look at you in the eye, and he really did come on like some kind of a child psychologist all the time. This was him 24/7. So now he's in front of Congress. He's on television because all of the things on television are all of the congressional hearings are televised. And there's this hard-boiled senator looking down at him. I can imagine how intimidating this is, and Fred works his magic on this hard-boiled senator, and at one point in the video, it's at actually 4 minutes and 52 seconds. I marked it, and I'll put that in the notes down below. Pastore says, well, I've never seen your show, Mr. Rogers, but I am impressed with what you're doing for children, and you, sir, have got your money. And on the spot, he okayed, or they were planning to give $10 million to PBS that year. And on the spot, it was made $20 million because that's what PBS had requested. And Rogers had worked that out. It's almost like a miracle worker. Nobody goes to the Senate and gets or to Congress and gets their money doubled, right? Just because they talk about what they're doing. But he had that magic and he had that passion, and it was contagious. And the fourth leadership stripe that Fred Rogers had was optimism. He was eternally optimistic, and he was always looking for the positive aspects in everything, especially in people. When asked about this, Rogers recalled something his mother used to say, and this you've seen memes about this when stuff happens, bad stuff happens, when somebody goes in and shoots up a school, or there's a natural disaster of some sort. And Rogers said that his mother used to say that whenever something bad happens, always look for the helpers. And I know we got some Rotarians on the call today. And Rotarians are helpers, right? We're always looking for ways that we can apply service. Can we go and help somebody? Can we send money? Can we make something happen? And so it was Fred Rogers' mother who said to him many, many times when he was growing up, always look for the helpers. There are still so many helpers, so many caring people in the world. So I think we were fortunate to have Fred Rogers help us. His spirit is alive today. I wish his behavior was more evident today in our leaders and in the people that we see on camera so much. So I'll put a lot of these links in the notes down below. If you want to join my free Facebook page, as I mentioned, it's private, but you can still join it. I'll put the link down below and you can have a look. I'm only accepting serious people. By the way, I promised the group I would be vetting bots, and I would be vetting people who were self-promotional and the haters, right? And one of the guys that applied to be in my group, there are two ways to tell if people are real on Facebook. One is to see if they, well, three that I use, if they actually have an avatar, a photo, which isn't proof that they're a real person, but if they didn't even bother to do an avatar, if they just joined Facebook in 2017, a year ago, everybody's been on Facebook for a long time. If they belong to 1,000 groups, these are all warning signs, right? I don't accept them into the group. And also their about page. If they bothered to populate the about page with some things about their lives, like where they live, what they do for a living, stuff like that, then they're probably more likely to be a real person. But the last thing I do is I look down into the timeline to see if it looks like this person is posting real lifelike messages. And if people are responding, if the people responding seem lifelike, because you can't fake that. And one of the guys that applied to be in my group spent a lot of time in his timeline talking about the differences between white and black people. And I'm like, delete, right? Not approved, not approved. And that's how I'm going to keep my circle of influence clean. That's how I'm going to protect the integrity of the Facebook group. Sharon, you don't have a real avatar. You have a photo of your dog. But I think that we all need to protect the integrity of Facebook. We all need to protect the integrity of our companies. If you're the leader of an organization, the leader of your condo association, you protect the integrity of the condo association, right? So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, as you know, I'm also doing an event November 2nd and 3rd. I always talk to you about this stuff, not to sell you, but if you're interested in improvement, if you're interested in living a better life, being a better role model. A lot of people ring my bell and they go, help me be a better speaker, help me be a better presenter. And I'm like, if you could just, and it's not a dig against them, but I say, if you could just be a better person, you become a better presenter. If you become a better communicator, you become a better presenter, right? Sharon says, just this month she was encouraging people to rescue. Yeah, I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I just wanted to talk. Has anybody seen the new Mister Rogers movie? I think it's only like I've been out a week or two. Has anybody seen it? And if so, type a quick review. I think John Pullum has seen it, but I don't know that he's on the call with us today. Give us a quick review, type it into the comment section. And keep in mind, there's a slight delay between when you type and when I see it. So we'll all look down below after after I'm done, because the more people watch the video after I'm done recording it than actually watch live. Russell from Chicago says, if you're a leader of any sort, you need to be in Tampa. Thank you very much, Russell. Russell's actually registered for the Tampa event. It's a 2-day program, everybody. We're going to be talking about life mastery, which is going to be including things like how to be a better communicator. It's not exclusively about that. We're spending half a day, for example, on how to have more vitality. Everybody wants to have more fun. Hey, Ray. Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Everybody wants to have a better life, right? I'm not saying Mr. Rogers had the perfect life, but this guy seemed as well-adjusted as anybody. And there are days, all of us have these days, where we get up in the morning and we're like, oh man, I just don't want to go to work today. I don't have the energy that I need. I don't have the mindset that I need. And we have to constantly be vigilant about maintaining positive energy in life so that we can take on the world, man. I always say that on any day you're not your best, the world is a lesser place. And I believe that. And if it's like, it's self-care is what it is. A lot of people think, well, these top leaders, they don't need to take care of themselves. They're okay the way they are. They're constantly rejuvenated. They got everything on autopilot. That is just not so. A lot of people think I'm a pretty highly motivated guy. I need to hang around with certain types of people for a certain amount of time so that I can get rejuvenated. I have to protect my sleep at night so I get enough sleep. Thank you, Sharon. And a lot of times I think, well, no, I need to stay up so that I can serve people better. No, I need to go to sleep so I can serve people better, you see? And I remember Robert Ludlum from the Jason Bourne series. He says, hey, Alicia. Alicia's on with us from Great Britain, I think, unless she's traveling. Robert Ludlum, the author, says sleep is a weapon. And he's absolutely right. But we get things all twisted. We get to be the opposite of Mr. Rogers, right? we think that we don't need to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of other people. You need to take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people. We think we have to be bombastic like a lot of the leaders we have today, and create dissent and talk smack about the other side so that our acolytes find us more appealing. Mr. Rogers never did that. He was one of the most beloved people of our time. Now, I'll grant you it was a different time back then. I do think that you have to find some ways. Hey, Michelle, good morning. You have to find some ways to work through the noise, absolutely. And I have techniques and tricks for this that work for me. But I think you can be a lot more like Mr. Rogers than most people give him credit for. A lot of people think he's passé now, or that was a different time. There's a lot of crap going on in the 70s. You know, you had protests, assassinations. There's a little clip from the movie. I saw it in the trailer. And I don't think this is a spoiler alert of any kind, but there was a little clip in the movie where he's explaining to the children on the show what assassination is. Can you imagine that? Because during that time, every 3 months, a very famous person, a very loved person is getting knocked off. And the kids are hearing about it at the dinner table. And it filters up through the producers and Mr. Rogers, of course, himself, the creator of the show. And he's like, oh my goodness, he probably said that, oh my goodness, we're going to have to spend some time on the next show explaining to children what assassination is. You know, and he did. I didn't see the whole bit, and it's probably searchable on YouTube. But in the movie, there's a little thing where somebody on the show is explaining what assassination is to the children. It's just bizarre to me. And yet we have to protect ourselves from ourselves, right? Those of us that are responsible for society, those of us that are the true stakeholders, right? And the true standard bearers have to figure this out. And so I'm doing my part when I'm doing speaker training, when I'm hosting the Present Like a Pro Facebook group page, when I'm in Tampa at a life retreat. We're not having many people there, but for the 10 or 12 people that do come to this little intimate thing, I'm going to be teaching people how they can go back home. And we're expecting a guy from England to attend, so they're going to go back home all over the world and be better people. And that if they should find themselves in front of a microphone or find themselves creating a blog post or being a guest on somebody's podcast, that they can be a better torch holder for the rest of us. And that's what it's all about. So I hope you enjoyed this little episode on Fred Rogers. If you like learning by video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We have well over 1,000 subscribers now, and the number's growing every day. A few people are joining. And I have some pretty cool playlists. I have a funny playlist called Funny SH and then asterisk T. Funny SH asterisk T. And it's got some good belly laughs. If you're interested in that on a Saturday morning, you can check it out anytime. If you subscribe on YouTube, make sure you click that silver bell so that you're notified of new videos as they come out. So thanks very much for being on the call, everybody. We hope you're having a fantastic summer. We do this Facebook Saturday morning live thing every Saturday, and then of course you can watch the whole video on my Facebook feed later in the day. Thanks very much for all that you do. Thanks for being a good person. Thanks for being more like Mr. Rogers. We'll talk with you soon.